Fascists in my synapses till it collapses all of the world. Fascists make the world collapse. It's tilted up upon its axis. Everyone is so relaxed while they shoot us in the back. Hello and welcome to this beautiful day. We're going for a walk out to there. And so I have been wanting to just chill out, climb into the old armchair and talk about something like, I don't know, philosophy, free will. I want to talk about free will. All right? Sue me. But we have to do our homework first. No, we have to do our civic duty first. So my last one, I talked about how I can't even think about things these days because the world is just blah, and it's like, how do you deal with these higher level problems, or even things that aren't really problems? I mean, free will, conversation on that. That's just fun, man. We can't remember to have fun, but it just sucks when the dregs of society have come in and just washed us all down the sink with them. So anyway, before we get into free will, we'll do that in the next video that I might record. We got a nice long walk. I'm taking the road, the wash here, so I can think. And anyway, so we are going to talk about this whole MAGA Trump sort of thing going on right now, because I've been a little bit curious about historical similarities or just cases where things maybe were somewhat comparable to this, because it feels unprecedented. This whole thing just feels like Nazi Germany right now. And, you know, but I keep going back and forth because there's like my family and people that I grew up with who are over there just like, oh, stop saying it's like the Nazis, man. It's not like that. And it's like, there's so many people that are just like, no, this is all just so good. And so I keep going back and forth like, am I just overreacting? Am I just like crazy right now to think that it's wrong to be, you know, sending armed forces into American cities and to have people getting shot and just people getting deported without question? It's just seems ridiculous. And so, yeah, I was doing some research last night, and I am no historian, so do your own research on this as well if you really want to get in on it. But I think I can summarize some of the stuff that I was looking at. So the biggest similarities I could find as far as like immigration or just like foreign policy stuff, maybe not foreign policy, but just the treatment of non-Americans or even Americans too, was during Nixon as well as Jackson. So, well, Jackson was with the Native Americans, who you could argue were more American than anybody. So that was actually more tragic, I would say, than what's happening now. I mean, in a way, they're just completely different scenarios. But so yeah, let's go back to the 1830s when Jackson was just like, Trail of Tears, let's get all of these Native Americans off their land. And basically, they didn't need to do too much propaganda back then, because there wasn't like all the newspapers were just owned by the whites, white guys. And so basically the narrative then that was just put into press was that the Native Americans were holding back progress. And so we were actually doing them a favor by kind of just pushing them aside to be like, look at all this land that we're opening up for these good Christian white people to come in and do what they need to do to serve God and yada yada. You know, so it was pretty easy just to put that in the newspaper, and then yeah, there wasn't really any sort of rebellion or protests, like just very mildly, I guess, but people didn't know about it, right? Like, it was just, if the information you're given is solely that this is kind of necessary and required, and also like we're relocating the Native Americans. Like, it's not like we're killing them, right? Even though, yeah, estimates were like 5,000 to 6,000 at least died, and that was through just like hardships and stuff. So you can imagine just like how many were just suffering like horribly as they were pushed out of their land. So John Quincy Adams was one of the voices of dissent at the time, and he was kind of just like, yeah, this is not right. And there was an actual formal objection, what do you call that? Not a bill brought to Congress, but just basically a petition, but from the officials. But there's like hardly any support for that. And so really it just happened. And I don't know. See, there's this interplay between like people who care and are actually protesting the thing that kind of give it a voice. And like there just wasn't that voice back then. And so it's like a silent slaughtering, it feels like. And so it's like that's the story. Like there was nobody telling the story. There's nobody protesting day in, day out. Just, I don't know. And so I think that just goes to show like the effect that media has. Like, because back then there was hardly any information being spread. It all went through the channels of these large presses, these newspapers, and they were basically all controlled by, you guessed it, the good old right, which admittedly was different back then. But anyway, so from a complete lack of information during those times, then we get up to Nixon, and at this point we have like pretty good media outlets, a large variety of sources of information for people to know what's going on. And so basically there was the Vietnam War, and there was a lot of protests on like sending people to go fight in a war that was just like nobody really wanted. Once again. And so a lot of these people protesting were students and stuff. And that's when we got the, forgive me, I don't remember the other university, but there's the Kent shooting, and the other one where I think it was 2 students in one of the schools were shot and 4 in another, and it was like 10 and 8 injured or something. Because yeah, they sent in the National Guard, and it was like 100 or 200, yeah, National Guard forces that were sent to these schools to kind of subvert the protests. And yeah, so going to these nonviolent protests, they go and gun down students. And then there was this huge protest at the White House, where 100,000 people showed up to protest these killings. And so I think that that's quite interesting. Like looking at like the numbers of troops, like federal troops that were needed. Like during Jackson pushing out the Native Americans, they didn't even actually employ the National Guard really, or barely, or any federal troops to a significant extent, I guess. This is what I heard. It was mostly just like militias and stuff. I mean, imagine you just like go into town and you tell all the people like, hey, you can have those Native Americans land, you just have to be the ones to go push them off. And then so all the yeehaws start and they go and do the dirty work. And so then, yeah, I just found it kind of interesting, just like the number of federal troops that were employed back then to do that, and then during Nixon, and now compared to Trump employing or deploying ICE, Homeland Security, National Guard, threats of bringing in the military here. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happened either, but like the numbers and the persistence, and I don't know, like Minneapolis, why? Yeah, so anyway, so I found it interesting to be like no media really back in Jackson's time, and then a good amount in Nixon's time, to today where there's almost an overload of information, where it becomes so easy for people to selectively support their biases. So they can just go and pick and choose their information, cherry pick whatever they want, and that's, yeah. Then you get all these people that these Facebookers who just sit around posting memes back and forth that are just like, I don't know why they call them fascists. Yeah. It's literally insane, but like polarized in a literal sense of like a polarizer can block light that is either vertically polarized or horizontally polarized, depending on how polarizer is aligned. And it's like that's how it feels like with information, where it's like all of the right-wing information gets to their people just fine, but anything else, anything contrary to that, gets completely blocked. And it's kind of vice versa. I mean, I feel like I try to understand like the sources of information that they're getting and how they could think the way they do. But it's just insane. Like after the recent murders, just seeing what the government is like putting out as the official story is absolutely crazy. And I guess if you didn't see the videos, then, I mean, I don't know. It's just insane to me, though. And it's like, these are the people that are so, like, oh, check your facts, man. That's fake news. You gotta make sure you're not, like, being fed the lies of big media and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, if you can look at a thing, if you can see it with your own eyes, like, you're telling me that that's not a reliable source of information. Like, it kills me, man. It kills me. So, I don't know. I would say this is pretty unprecedented, at least on that, like, these kind of metrics. And I guess if the biggest, most similar comparison is Nixon, then we have a problem. But I feel like it's even worse than Nixon, because like Nixon notoriously, like, kept a lot of things under the radar, a lot of his shady deals and things, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that we just didn't know. Whereas it feels like with Trump, like, he's built, like, this idea that, like, oh, I'm just gonna be blatantly evil, and so people will be like, well, at least he's being honest, because, like, surely he's not more evil than that under the surface. He, like, puts it all out there. And there's people that are just like, oh yeah, I'll take it. Like, it's honest. And it's like, you're so cynical if you think that that's, like, if everybody's on the level of Trump, but they're just lying about it, but he's the only one who's being honest, so he's the one you can trust. And it's like, oh my, I hope that's not who you are deep down. But I guess a lot of these people are showing that it isn't who they are deep down, it's who they are, who they want to be on the surface. And it's so just like, come on, all of you freedom thumping people that are just, why don't you have principles? I thought you had principles. Like, you just have hate. Anyway, so I think that we're gonna wrap this up because I'm just ranting. So, yeah, that's it. Don't be like Jackson, don't be like Nixon, and don't be like Trump. How about? And yeah, also it's just like the way that these people are remembered. I mean, yeah, like, if you actually study history, then you'd be like, oh yeah, Nixon, he's evil. But, like, I think, like, in the public sphere, he's just like, oh yeah, he's the Watergate scandal guy. But, like, I don't know, it does seem like we've kind of put all presidents on a sort of equal playing field where they're, like, if you don't know anything, then all you know is, like, they did some good and they did some bad. And maybe it's like, oh, well, Kennedy did a little bit more good than bad or something. Whereas Nixon did a little more bad than good. And it's like, you do that with all the presidents, like all the people, all the politicians. And it's like, there's no, if that's the one thing you remember, there's no, like, scale that actually shows just how extreme and insane they were. And so now when you get into this age now with Trump, it's like, where's the scale? Like, is it just like the same thing? Oh, he did some good. Like, is there, our scales are broken. All right, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, if there's not a person that can push the scale to be like, oh, that person is reprehensible, and basically we should, as a society, completely reject everything they stood for. If that doesn't exist, then our scales are broken, because a scale is meant to have a full range. And it just feels like we don't right now. It feels like we're so just like, everyone is good and everybody's got bad. So, like, I don't know. Drives me nuts. Anyway, I'm gonna call this. So, I think I need to actually start heading that way. I'm walking the wrong way out here. Gotta go, which one of those? One of those mountains. All right, let's go that way and talk about free will.